Well, hello there, folks. Welcome to Porch Step Stories. My gosh, can you believe we're already in Chapter 5? Today, Ben leaves church expecting, nothing more than some rest and his mother's homemade remedies for his worsening cold. But as he and his friends make their way home, alarming news emerges from the fog. Pearl Harbor has been attacked. In a matter of moments, an ordinary Sunday becomes a day that will change the entire country and bring new fears to Ben and his mother because of their Japanese ancestry. Yet, even as uncertainty begins to surround him, the strength of family, friendship, and love offers a small light in the gathering darkness. Settle in, folks, get comfortable, and join me in Chapter 5 of Journey into Darkness, The Gathering Storm. After the closing prayer was offered, Ben stood and began making his way off the stand when he heard a familiar voice. "Thank you for making sure the sacrament table was properly set up today. Thanks also for always being so reliable. It makes my service in our church easier for me when I have such good follow-through by those who have been delegated responsibilities. Do you have a track meet last Tuesday, or should I say, did you have one?" "No, Bishop, it was just a meeting for those who are involved with track this season. I want to remind you I'd like to come to your next track meet. Track has always been interesting to me. When I was in high school, I was in track and field. If my schedule allows, I would like to see you compete. Thanks, Bishop, for your interest and support. I'll let you know the next time we have one and would enjoy having you come. But I understand if it's not possible, because being a doctor can be demanding on your time. Bishop, I won't be coy with you. I really miss Papa. Ben, are you not feeling very well today? You look a little on the pale side." "That's just my observation." "I'm getting a cold, Bishop," he said as he leaned against the mahogany banister next to the podium. "Yeah," Brent piped up, overhearing the conversation. "Ben said he's going to bed after sacrament meeting today." "Sounds like a good idea to me. If you get feeling worse, give me a call, and I'll get you a prescription. Come closer, Ben. Maybe I better have a look-see. Perhaps your throat is inflamed." To anyone not familiar with the congregation and its bishop, it would have seemed odd to see a boy standing in the chapel with his tongue sticking out, his mouth wide open, saying "ah." They would learn it was just Dr. Brimley, the bishop, trying to take care of a friend. In fact, he had delivered most of the children and babies in the congregation. "I see, and then again, maybe not," Dr. Brimley pronounced in a professional manner. "Is he going to live?" Brent asked. "His chances are good, but he needs some good old-fashioned nursing at home." "I think he needs some mustard plaster, don't you, Dr. Brimley?" Brent piped up with a sarcastic chuckle, knowing he would be walking on thin ice, suggesting a remedy Ben detested. "No mustard plaster, but a hot toddy made with lemon, sassafras, and honey will do you a world of good, Ben." "I hate that too," he moaned. "We could slip over to my home and I'll give you a shot of penicillin." Ben's eyes widened as things began to go from bad to worse. "No, I'll go home, take the tonic, and not trouble you further." "Actually, I think a shot would do him a world of good," Brent quickly added, faking a not-so-hidden gesture of concern. "Go away," Ben stated, starting to feel a bit irritated with Brent's incessant teasing. "Just kidding, don't get all hot and bothered on me," Brent said, knowing he'd pushed his luck to the limit. "Bishop, he's getting on my nerves today. I'm going to take him out and give him a pounding." "Yeah, you and whose army?" Brent was quick to add. The bishop put an arm around each of the boys as they walked to the rear of the chapel, where his mama and the rest of the Jamison family were waiting. "Sister Okura, Ben has a sore throat and a slight fever. I'd take him home and put him to bed, give him a hot toddy, and let him sleep it off." "Thank you, Bishop Paul. Take him home right now." Ben's comfort index was diminishing quickly as they exited the chapel onto Sneath Lane. The biting chill and a light breeze penetrated through his outer garments. He wished he'd grabbed a jacket before leaving home for sacrament meeting. The weather was a bit on the overcast side and a trifle foggy. He started to feel his mood becoming dreary, just like the day. Ben, Mr. Jamison, and Brent walked faster than Julianne, Mrs. Jamison, and his mama, because the women had stopped to visit with Mrs. Glover. As the boys proceeded down the sidewalk, Mr. Jamison said, "I'm really pleased with the Christmas decorations you two put up this year. I've already had several compliments about them from customers. The tree, decorated with Christmas cards, has been a big hit with everyone. I might even be persuaded to give both of you a Christmas bonus this year." "You're exceedingly kind, Mr. Jamison, but it's not necessary. You pay me very well." "Speak for yourself," Brent chirped. Mr. Jamison smiled. "I think both of you earned it this year. Honey, slow down. You menfolk have a way of just taking off and leaving us ladies in the dust," Doris called. "The last time I looked back, you were busy gossiping with Mrs. Glover," Mr. Jamison responded, knowing he wouldn't get any brownie points for his comment. "I'll have you know there was absolutely no gossiping. Mrs. Glover simply told us Helen, the beautician over on Norton Street, she's finally getting married." "Isn't she about 40? Mr. Jamison retorted with a smile. "Smarty pants, I suppose she is, but it's never too late to find your true love. Sister Okura, these men need a good swat occasionally when they make fun of people." "I'm staying out of this one," Ben's mama replied, looking slightly embarrassed. "True love," Brent snickered, as he peered over his shoulder at Ben and Julianne, who were talking with one another as they walked slowly behind everyone else. Today was a little different than most Sundays, because he and Brent usually walked together when the weather wasn't wet or stormy. Often Mrs. Jamison would ask Brent what he had learned in church that day, which Brent never seemed to know. Then she would ask Julianne, who always seemed to have the most articulate answer. Ben thought, "I'm so glad I usually miss out on this inquisition." His own mama rarely asked him what he had learned in his meetings. It wasn't because she didn't care or wasn't interested, but it was just not her nature to ask such questions. They were almost to the crossroads, where the Jamison family would turn down to their home, and Ben and his mama would start walking in the opposite direction. Not much had changed since before Ben could remember. Fog was coming in and getting denser as time went by. Ben felt himself begin to quiver inside from the chilly day. He and everyone else heard a commotion up the street, a few houses away. It was a shrill voice emanating through the foggy air, which was alarming. He knew who lived in most of the houses on this street, and whatever was happening seemed to be in the proximity of the Brunson home. He thought it was Tim Brunson. Even though it was foggy, it looked like he was standing outside on his front porch, bellowing something to anyone who would listen. Why would he be outside on a Sunday morning, yelling at the top of his lungs? Everyone was concerned and hurried over to see if Tim was in trouble. The boys knew him fairly well, even though he was a year behind them in school, because he was quite well known as a phenomenal pole vaulter for his size and age. As they drew closer, Tim noticed them, jumped down from his porch and ran to them, still yelling something in an unintelligible voice. He was so excited he was bordering on being distraught. "Slow down," Brent urged as he grabbed Tim and firmly placed both hands on his shoulders. "What is it, my good man?" "The Japs are coming! The Japs are coming!" he stuttered in an excited voice. "They're coming to get us." "Dad, doesn't it sound like he said the Japs are coming?" Brent questioned, glancing up at his dad for confirmation. "Yes, that's exactly what I said," Tim agreed, beginning to calm down slightly, but his facial features were lined with a concern. "They bombed Pearl Harbor early this morning," he said, looking intently at Mr. Jamison. "Tell me where you heard that," Mr. Jamison asked calmly, hoping this would help get Tim's emotions under control. "Well, it was on the radio," he said, sounding ridiculous that they didn't automatically understand or necessarily believe him. "So, you heard this on the radio?" Ben said, sounding as if he could hardly believe it. He could feel Julianne clutching his arm as if she sensed something ominous had happened. "Calm down, Tim," Mrs. Jamison urged, starting to sound alarmed herself. "Dear, can't you see the boy's upset? Let me handle this," Mr. Jamison insisted. "No, I think I know what happened," Mr. Jamison fervently concluded. "Now listen to me for just a second, Tim. Remember a few years back when the actor Orson Welles produced a radio program about Martians landing on Earth in flying saucers? People who didn't hear the beginning of the program thought it was a real news broadcast. In fact, people were so scared, there were some who, committed suicide." While Mr. Jamison was explaining this to Tim, a tall figure was standing beside Ben. It was Tim's father, with a solemn look on his face. "I apologize for interrupting, but Tim is correct," Mr. Brunson said as he pulled his son close to him. "But why would they do a thing like that?" Brent asked, sounding confused. "I have no idea," Mr. Brunson said quietly in an effort to calm his son down. "I just know what he told you is true. In fact, they stated several times that it wasn't a joke, radio play, or fiction. There's been one news flash after another for the last several minutes. We were listening to a ball game on the radio when it was interrupted. I was irritated until I heard what happened. They had said several times that things are sketchy now. They will tell us more as they get the information. I was skeptical myself when I heard the news flash. I decided to call my brother Bill, who lives over in San Mateo. He was just about to call and ask me if I had been listening to the radio. I reaffirmed I had. He cut me off before I could finish and excitedly told me his wife was listening to a program called The World Today. She rushed out to the porch where he was making a few extra flies for his fishing kit. She said the news flash sounded like Pearl Harbor was under an enormous surprise air attack by the Japanese. Julianne, she firmly held on to Ben's arm, feeling an urgent need to hold on tightly. She sensed a severe change in their life was coming, so he clutched his arm even tighter while listening to the Brunson family. She started to realize, even though she and Ben had a great deal in common, circumstances beyond their control could drastically affect their budding relationship. Mr. Jamison noticed Mrs. Okura sat down in a slumped position with her head and hands on a nearby bus stop bench. "Are you okay?" Mr. Jamison inquired as he sat down next to her. "I'm okay," she said with a weak smile on her face. "I'm just taken by surprise with this terrible news." No one noticed that in a few seconds they had been conversing about the news. The rest of the two families had gathered around Mrs. Okura. It was an odd-looking little group. Everyone had gathered together as if to protect her and each other. Brent was standing at the foot of the light pole next to the bench where Mrs. Okura and Mr. Jamison sat. "Julie, Julianne and Ben were standing close by, with Julianne tightly grasping his arm. Mrs. Jamison stood nearby, staring blankly at Julianne and Ben as she realized more fully how fond they were of each other. She thought she had known for quite some time, but had put it out of her mind until now. She knew they were way too young to pursue a romantic relationship, but reality was now staring her in the face. It was as if all of them were frozen in time, each one captured by their own thoughts. It wasn't until Brent commented on the obvious, their motionless state, that they become conscious of their actions. The world had become more complicated and difficult for all of them than it had been just an hour and a half earlier. Julianne's grasp of Ben's arm meant subliminally what he had wanted it to mean for quite some time now. She was on the same wavelength as Ben. Mrs. Okura's thoughts were about what today's attack meant for her and Ben because of their Japanese ancestry. What would you say about Brent? He was, well, just Brent, under any circumstances. Mrs. Jamison had just come to the realization that Julianne wasn't a little girl anymore. She felt pangs of uncertainty in these few moments as she admitted to herself the closeness of this couple. Mr. Jamison was left with his own concerns about how this war he knew was on their doorsteps would affect both families and his business. "I'll say it once again," Brent chirped. "Why are we all still standing around here? Let's go home and listen to the news." "Finally a young wise man speaks," Mr. Jamison replied in a reverent manner. "I think the lad has a point. I'll put on a pot of hot chocolate. I have remnants of a carrot cake left in my dear son. That is, if my dear son hasn't eaten it all yet, I suppose. We would really like you and Ben to come over and set a spell," Doris said, reaching down and taking Valerie's hand. "We will be most happy to join you. I think if we go home now, I'll feel very alone. Ben and I appreciate the invitation. What will people think of us?" Mrs. Okura wondered out loud. "Good. It's settled. Let's go straight home, because I'm hungry," Brent said flippantly, producing a smile from Mrs. Okura. Admittedly or not, they realized the world would change markedly for each of them. Too much was happening right now for them to understand everything. It would be in a quiet moment, when they had a chance to ponder all the ramifications, that they would come to realize how significantly their lives would be affected. After Mr. Jamison closed the front door behind them, he ushered Mrs. Okura over to their brown couch. "Brent, fetch a couple of chairs for Julianne and Ben." "Sure thing, Dad. I'll be right back." "Make yourself comfortable, Valerie, and I'll cut up some cake." "Can I help you with anything, Doris?" "No, just take your coat off and make yourself at home." "No, sorry, Ben. I guess I used to watch where I was going," Mr. Jamison said as he stepped over Ben, who was stretched out with his back against the couch, with Julianne at his side. "Ben, you're a guest in their home. Please sit on a chair, for heaven's sakes." "It's okay, Mrs. Okura. He usually sits on the floor when he's here," Brent said frankly. "I'll take a moment or two. I think it'll take just a moment or two," he said, squirming with the radio, the old Spartan, for it to warm up. Mr. Jamison noted as he leaned down to tune in the station on the radio. "I think I have a weak tube, because it takes longer and longer for it to come on." "Thank you, Doris," Valerie said as she was served a piece of cake. Mr. Jamison received a phone call shortly after everyone arrived at their home following sacrament meeting that the rest of their church meetings were canceled. because of the attack on Pearl Harbor. Sorry, there seems to be a lot of static today, Mr. Jamison verified, sounding concerned. Whoops, I think I just passed the station. It sounded like they said, "This is the Mutual Radio Network." I think it did, Brent added. Turn it back just a little bit. There, I think you found the station. It's been a dark day, the commentator concluded. We are now starting to get information which has been authenticated by the government. Ben set his plate aside as he listened more intently. For those of you who are just tuning in, the Japanese Imperial Navy made a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor at 7 a.m. this morning. Here are some of the facts we have confirmed at this time. Many battleships have been sunk or severely damaged. It is reported that casualties are high. It has also been reported that the Army has suffered tremendous damage over at Hickam Field. Many airplanes were destroyed on the ground before they could get into the air. Actual eyewitnesses on the spot reports came from a B-17 Flying Fortress bomber group landing at Hickam Army Air Corps Field. They were coming in from the continental United States and were in the same airspace as the Japanese Zero fighters when they were bombing Battleship Row. They flew right into the middle of a new war. Ben felt far away in his own world. He had even forgotten Julianne, who was sitting by his side with her warm, soft hand in his. His thoughts were on the disaster which had befallen his country, delivered by some of his distant relatives, even though he did not know any of them. He felt anger well up inside of him at the thoughts of anyone doing such a dastardly deed, and felt his face flush with anger. Momentarily, the flu-like symptoms he had suffered earlier were overtaken by his anger at Japan and its people. Brent was the first to notice that Ben had become inordinately silent and was looking even paler. "Hey, my friend, I know you're not feeling well. Would you like me to walk you and your mama home?" "I am sorry, Brent. What did you say?" Ben said, looking up a bit confused. "Can I offer you a hand up?" Brent replied, as he repeated his earlier question. "Sure thing. I would love to have the company," Ben was quick to acknowledge. However, before Brent could even offer his hand, a news flash came on the radio. The commentator announced that the government had ordered a complete blackout of the west coast of the United States starting at 7 p.m. because of the president's concern about saboteurs operating on the west coast area. All military bases and personnel were put on full alert. The content of the news alert had not been fully comprehended before the commentator said he had another news flash. President Roosevelt will address a full session of Congress tomorrow. The time will be announced later. Once again, they were all stunned by the announcement. Ben suddenly found himself in his sweet little mama's arms, whose cheeks were now wet with tears. He gently put his arms around her and urged her carefully to his side. He lovingly sensed, well beyond his years, what she needed most. "I love you, Mama. It's going to be okay. You and I are going to make it through this," he said gently, but emphatically. "No, we are all going to make it through this," Julianne stated, sitting down beside Mrs. Okura and putting her arms around Ben's mama too. Mrs. Jamison began to wipe away her tears as she felt a deep sense of pride for these two youths who sat beside this little stoic woman and comforted her. "Where has all the time gone? Why didn't I notice my daughter was becoming such a young lady, and Ben such a fine young man? Even while in the darkest despair, if one looks close enough, you can always find a bright, shining moment. If you can find enough people like these two in this world, we will have nothing to fear but fear itself." She had heard this statement before, but couldn't place when, where, or by whom it was said. After all, it really didn't matter in the least. As she looked at everyone around her, she thought how lucky and blessed I am to have each and every one of my family members and old friends. "Benny, let me walk you home," Brent offered again. "Benny, huh? I haven't heard you call me that since we were little kids playing in the sandpile. How about both Brent and I walk you two home?" Julie offered, reaching for Ben's hand once again. "I think he would rather have you, Julianne, but I'm coming anyway." "I have an extra arm you can hold on to," Mrs. Okura said, with a smile. "I want both of you just to go over and come right back." "There, Mom," directed. "Ben, as you can see, needs his rest. Bishop Brimley told me he needs a hot toddy to keep him warm and to go to bed." "Thanks, Brent. I remember what he said. Do you also remember he told you if you didn't get better, he would give you a shot of penicillin?" "I think you've said enough, Brent. I don't need any penicillin," he added in a most emphatic way. Ben could see what his mama needed most was to get home. "Thanks so much, Doris, for your hospitality and the delicious cake. Thanks for your friendship and company as well." Mr. Jamison acknowledged their goodbyes and then continued hovering over the old Spartan radio and fidgeting with the dial, hoping to get further updates on the calamitous news of the day. As the four of them walked out into the crisp early evening air, they paused while each of them silently experienced a reaffirmation that yes, this was real. The day seemed darker and more dreary than usual. In fact, the chill in the weather added to the anxious feeling that permeated each person's soul and filled them with uncertainty. "There's an extra bite in the air tonight," Julianne commented as she buttoned up her coat. She instinctively rushed over and reached over as well and pulled up the zipper on the blue and white jacket Brent had loaned Ben for the walk home. This day started out much more different than it ended. Neither Ben nor Brent had taken a coat to church this morning. Church seemed like a long time ago. As they all walked together to the Okura's home, it was darker than usual because of some of the blackout conditions put into effect. Ben was glad to see his home, nestled in the darkening shadows of the night. It still was a haven of peace and rest from the turmoil caused by today's events for him and his mama. He'd always felt his home represented love and kindness. Even his cherished memories of his papa rested within those sacred walls. "Well, it looks like this is where Julianne and I must leave you this evening. Bob was emphatic that we come right home," Brent stated as they turned to walk away. "We both love you," Ben called as Julianne and Brent had already turned and were walking away. Even to Ben, the words, "We both love you," which has escaped his lips, came as a surprise to him. From a distance he could see Julianne turn around and look back at them, wearing a broad smile. This evening he and his mama would ask a kind, loving Heavenly Father to reach down and receive the souls of those who had been lost, and comfort the injured and the loved ones left to mourn for them. As Ben opened the kitchen door, he automatically reached for the light switch to turn on the kitchen light. It quickly dawned on him that he might not be doing the proper thing. He knew the president had imposed a blackout starting at 7 p.m. He was a bit rattled about what his course of action should be. He glanced over his shoulder and quickly closed their door. "Is there a problem?" his mama questioned, noting his actions. As he glanced at the street, he noted the street lights were on and other houses had lights on inside as well. He supposed it was okay for him to turn on the lights in their kitchen, At least for now, since it wasn't yet 7 o'clock at night. No, Mom, I was hesitant about turning on the lights because I wasn't quite sure what time it was and whether the blackout order was in effect. I think it means we should turn out all our lights, but it isn't 7 o'clock yet, so I think we're okay. Yes, I remember hearing about the blackout, too. I believe I'll just sit here a spell before I retire. I didn't realize we stayed so long at the Jamisons, but, Ben, you need to go to bed right now. I'll fix a hot toddy for you and bring it up. Time seemed to slip away as we were engrossed and eager to hear the details given in each news flash. I hope we didn't impose on our friend's hospitality. Here, let me set that on the credenza. It was evident from the look on her face that she was both worried and exhausted. It was difficult for him to ascertain just how she was feeling, because she never complained about anything. One of the only times Ben ever remembered hearing a hint of complaint was after his papa's passing. He happened by her bedroom door late at night and couldn't help but stop and listen as he overheard her praying out loud. He knew he was intruding upon her privacy and thought he shouldn't have, but he couldn't stop himself. He heard her tell God she didn't know why he needed her husband more than she did. She was completely stricken by this personal tragedy in her life. It was so unexpected and came without much warning. Coming back to the present, he noticed his mama had taken a brown, gold, and reddish-colored scarf out of her coat pocket and was carefully folding it on the table as she quietly started conversing with him. You know, your papa gave this to me the first Christmas we were married, she noted as she proceeded to fold it carefully. I know you've had it for a very long time, but I didn't realize it was that long ago, or a Christmas gift, Ben replied, pulling out a chair and sitting down at the other end of the table. You really miss him, don't you, Mama? He was your whole life, wasn't he? Ben mused as he kicked off his shoes to relax before going upstairs. No, you are wrong, she said as she lifted her head and looked at him straight in the eyes. I adored your papa, but I adore you as well. I have enough love for both of you, she proclaimed as her eyes became misty. I am forever grateful to have you for my son, she said, reaching across the tabletop and grasping both of his hands. They became alarmed and briefly stirred from their chairs as they heard a siren outside. Hearing the sirens, Ben noticed his hands were forming a fist. It was an unconscious reaffirmation they both needed each other very much. The days, months, and weeks ahead would be difficult. The siren faded into the distance. Son, let's go to bed. I still need to fix you a hot toddy. You sound like you're starting to lose your voice. I'm afraid you're right. I think I'm getting laryngitis. Go to bed. I'll get things prepared and bring them up in just a few minutes. Ziggy had been lying under the dresser and, amazingly, hadn't pestered or bothered either of them since they'd come home. It didn't take Ben any time to go upstairs and get undressed and in bed. He flicked on the table lamp by his bed, gently picked up the silver-framed picture of his papa off the dresser, and was staring at it. Yes, we both miss him, and especially at times like these. You best put it down, Ben. It's time to turn out your light and go to sleep. The silver tray held what Ben knew as a hot toddy and something else. It was the something else, covered with a white towel, that immediately raised his concern. I hope that's not what I think it is, he moaned. Now, Ben, there will be no fussing tonight, she said firmly. Mama, I don't need a mustard plaster. "Don't argue with me," she said as she lifted his nightshirt and firmly placed the mustard plaster on his chest. "You'll thank me when you start feeling better." "How long do I have to have it on?" Ben complained. "I'll be back in about an hour. If it looks like it's working and your chest is red, I'll take it off." "I'll have itched myself to death by then," he moaned. No one has ever itched themselves to death because of mustard plaster, Ben." "Well, I'll be the first." But before he could complain further, she leaned down and kissed him on the forehead, patted him on the cheek, and turned out the light. From this day forward, life could change on a dime. Friends and family would be the glue that binds and forges a way forward through the gathering storm that lay just ahead.